Ni hao, builders. The Imperial Bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding Imperial Bureaucracy. Welcome into Middle Age TNG and the hell that is incredible amounts of bureaucracy. Let's take a look and see what they are all about. The Celestial Empire of TNG is ancient. Since the founding of the Empire, peace has reigned and a bureaucracy of great efficiency has evolved. Ministers and officials chosen by skill rather than birth govern the Empire. The Emperor and his family are considered divine, but are not involved in administration. The cavalry of TNG is well known, and the infantry is varied and versatile. The eunuchs who run the bureaucracy are able to conscript troops for the defense of provinces as part of the taxes due to the empire. A magic tradition called the Way is practiced by hermits and scholars in the kingdom. Prominent masters of the Way come to the heavenly gate in the capital to be ordained as celestial masters. These mage priests can summon heavenly beings from the celestial sphere to serve the empire. Pretty cool evolution from their early era, more wushu, more magical. We still have good magic here, but it's more of like regimented, learned magic rather than mystical type things. Although we still have a bit of that. For national features, we are humans. We are definitely solidly human. For military, we have cavalry, heavy infantry, archers, crossbows, and conscriptions. This is actually kind of good here, ironically enough. Magic, we have a bit of water, astral, fire, earth, air, a little bit of nature, some glamour, and we can summon celestial beings. So a wide pathing, but not particularly high in most of those. Our priests are average. We do have a recruitable priest level 2, although no holy 3s, unfortunately. For scales and blesses, we have an order limit of +1 and a misfortune limit of +1. An interesting combo there. For buildings, we build fortified cities, so rather than going up to castles, which are the standard for Middle Age, we go through a palisade, like a city palisade, walled city, and a fortified city, or something along those lines. Those are okay. They're not quite as defensive as a castle would be, but they are fine. For sites, we have 2 sites. We have the Celestial City. The Celestial City allows us to get our cap only sacreds along with one of our cap only mages, gives us an earth and a water gem. And we have the Heavenly Gate. This allows us to recruit our celestial masters, which are cap only. We get 2 astral pearls and 1 air gem. In addition, we boost astral ritual range by 1 province. Could be kind of interesting there, depending on what you'd like to cast. Units and sacreds. As you can see, as a continuation from early age, we have a quite wide roster with a lot of like tiered troops of the same variety. Let's take a look and see how they hold up for middle age. First up, we have Footman. The Footman, he's okay. If you are not going to get shot by any kind of projectiles, this is a pike and it is a length 5 weapon. We only have 10 attack, unfortunately. If this attack was a little better, these would be much better troops. 17 piercing damage is pretty respectable there, though. We are equipped with full leather armor and a half helmet. Overall, I'm not too sure about these guys. I think if you were going to have something that you knew was going to eat a cavalry charge, these guys would be better. There's an off chance that they get a repel before they die, and I would rather a 10 gold, 9 resource, 9 recruitment guy die than something more expensive. But overall, I don't know about these guys too much. I think they are usable in the right circumstances. How often do those circumstances come up? I'm not entirely certain. Let's see. What's the best plan to tackle all this? Let's just go in order. Next up, we have Footman. This Footman has a glaive. This is what I would consider like the conscript level troop. So 10 gold, 11 resources, 9 recruitment. We are a bog standard human, basically 10s across the board. We're size 3. We are equipped with a full leather armor and a half helmet. We have 10 magic resistance and 10 morale. That's not the worst thing ever. If you need a very cheap 2-handed weapon, it is length 3, so that is nice. It has a 22 damage with slashing and piercing damage, but only 9 attack. That's, again, kind of unfortunate. We do have some light fire access, but we're not going to be easily able to buff these guys, unfortunately. Overall, these are okay. I would take them if you're fighting something really big with low defense. Not sure these are too worth the investment. Next, we have Footman. This is actually an incredible unit. Again, bog standard human, 10 gold, 11 resources, 9 recruitment points. But you're paying 10 gold for a tower shield. That's actually pretty good. Also, 10 morale is a lot better than similar troops often will have. They would have 8 or 9 morale. These are really good, actually. Tower shields are very powerful. An extra 16 protection on top of what you already have. So if we got hit in the body, that could be 25 protection as long as we get the shield block. And it's got 7 parry, so the odds of it actually going off are pretty decent. And for the price, you can actually pour these guys out of your forts. I actually kind of like these guys. I use them as kind of the chaffy line troops, especially early on in the game when you can't afford something better. Next up, we have Archer. This is actually okay. Surprising, I know. 10, 12, 9 for the cost. Again, dirt cheap. Basic human across the board. They are equipped with a short sword, which they're not particularly great at, but it's better than a dagger at least. We're armored with full leather armor and half helmet. That's just kind of our standard light gear. And we have a composite bow. At least it's not a short bow. And they're okay with it. They have 11 precision on the shot, 12 ammo, and 13 piercing damage. If you're not going up against very heavily armored troops, a good smattering of these will definitely help get a little bit more killy power into your lines. I think, generally speaking, I would prefer this over the crossbow we're going to look at earlier during expansion, unless I have a hard target that I need to shoot. So overall, this is actually kind of a good archer, but I think he has an expiration date. Unless you're fighting people who have lightly armored troops, you probably will want to transition to the crossbow as you get better resources available to you. Next up, we have Ministry Guardsman. This is a slightly better equipped glaive troop. 12 gold, 14 resources, 14 recruitment points. We're using the same glaive, but we're better at it. Now we have a 10 attack. That actually makes a decent amount of difference. For most base units, you have 10 defense skill. Going from 9 to 10 means you have at least, it's not really even odds, but let's round and say even-ish odds for your attack. They also have a patrol bonus if for some reason you needed to patrol. They also have our heavier gear. It's like, let's call this like our medium gear. Scale mail cuirass and the same half helmet. So we look at protection here, 10 on the body, 18 on the head. That's okay. This is kind of a light-ish, medium-ish troop for Middle Ages. He works fine. Again, if I need a good two-hander weapon, this gives me an option. 22 damage is nothing to sneeze at. The protection value I consider to be like the Middle Age value is 16, so we definitely could hurt 16 protection troops with these guys. Next up, we have Ministry Footman. This is a heavier version of the previous Footman. He costs 12 gold, 14 resources, 14 recruitment points, just wielding a spear with human stats. He essentially is the same offensively, but we are more geared. Scale mail cuirass is 10, half helmet's the 18, tower shields is 16. Now, here's the thing though. Body protection 10 here. If we look at this guy, body protection 9. 11 resources versus 14. I don't know if 3 resources are worth going up 1 protection. I think I would, generally speaking, stick to the cheaper guys. Essentially, like, what, 4.5 of these guys, I could get 1 extra of the other guy. So it's going to be dependent on your recruitment pool and your resources pool. But generally speaking, I don't like this guy too much. I think 3 resources for 1 protection is probably not worth it in this case. Next up, we have Ministry Guardsman again. This one is using a man catcher for a weapon. 12 gold, 15 resources, 14 recruitment points, human stats. What's interesting about this guy is he's using a man catcher, kind of a cool weapon here. So it has a low attack, so he only ends up with an 8, unfortunately. But if you actually hit, and it's on damage, not on hit, you get a grab, which is a stun. I think that's interesting. If I wanted to try these guys, I would mix one in every few troops when I'm recruiting, and that will make him sprinkle into your lines. If you just recruit 10 of these guys in a row, they'll be in a clump and they won't be able to hit anything. So, like, maybe one out of every, well, one every three, or one out of every six is probably the ratio I would go with if I wanted to try these guys. If you were fighting enemy troops that are like, the problem is you have to actually damage. So they need to be low-ish defense, low-ish protection, and you could hit them and get a stun on them. That could be kind of cool. I do note here, this damage does not say that it is slashing, piercing, or blunt. So you could get around like a temper armor effect that gives you resistances to that. Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. It's too bad we're not very good at buffing attack. If we could buff this with Battle Fury up to 10, that would be a lot more interesting. Overall, cool. I don't know if this sees any use though. Next up, we have the Imperial Footman. Now we've moved into our heavier troops. So this is our basic footman in his heaviest form, his third evolution. 13 gold is still fine. 20 resources, 16 recruitment points. You end up with 15 body protection. So the lighter end of heavier troops of middle age, I think that's all right. And remember, we're combining that with a tower shield. So up to 31 protection if you get a shield block. And they're pretty good with their defense. They actually are better trained. So we've gone up to 11 on the spear hit. If you can afford these guys, these are probably your better line troops compared to the cheapo guys. But we're using almost double the resources. So you're getting half as many. When you have too many melee troops and it's better to have higher quality than just more, this would be a guy to consider. However, there's another consideration to be had here. One of our main strategies for middle-aged TNC is Gifts from Heaven. Gifts from Heaven probably will have a lot of friendly fire. If I'm going to kill, I don't know, let's say 15 troops, I would rather kill 15 of my regular footmen than 15 of these expensive Imperial footmen. So another thing to think about there, perhaps these guys would be more useful in your armies that are not going to do Gifts from Heaven, and get the cheapo guys in the army that is going to do that. So if you have friendly fire incidents, which you probably will with Gifts of Heaven, this guy's at least less of a sting when it happens. Next up, we have Imperial Archer. This is a slightly better trained, heavily armored composite bow. He is slightly more accurate. He uses the same bow. He's using full scale mail and a half helmet. Also better with his short sword. I don't know if I would get this guy though. If I'm going to go up from just the regular archer, I think I'm probably going to crossbow and not this. This could be interesting if you need to be in an archery duel with enemy crossbows that are not armored. Maybe, but the enemy crossbow is going to cut through your protection anyways. You might as well get more of the cheap guys. 12 resources versus 21. So you're going to get almost 2-to-1. I think in those situations, more composite bows are just better than a bit of armor that's not going to do anything. The more armored guys here would be good if you're in a duel with, let's say, short bows. That would be your victory condition there. They also have 12 morale compared to 10, so they will stick around longer if they're getting punished badly. Something of note. Next, we have the Imperial Crossbowman. It wouldn't be Middle Ages if you don't have a crossbowman. And we have a pretty decent one. He is human bog standard, but he's actually pretty well trained with 11 precision. 13 gold, 21 resources, 16 recruitment points. This is a bit of a premium, but not horrifically so. We are wearing that heavier armor for full scale mail and a half helmet. That does mean that lighter short bows, etc., will be less of a threat to us. And we are very accurate with our crossbow. We have 13 precision on that attack. And this is a standard crossbow, so every other round we fire, range 40 gives us the extra 2 precision. Is iron if that's relevant to you. Remember that crossbows have armor piercing and they are pierce damage. Those add together for I believe they just straight add so 65% protection ignore. That is the deadliness of crossbows. Accurate fire at good range and ignore a lot of protection. So your snazzy 16 protection troop has like 7 protection against these guys. That's where they become so darn deadly. Or your giant is going to be relatively accurately pincushioned by a bunch of crossbows. A good troop, hard to mass because of the high resource costs. I do wish we had a light version of crossbows, the equivalent to this archer, but using the crossbow. I think that'd be even better. But this is totally fine. We have it available to us. It is a good strategic option to have. Imperial City Guard. This is a glaive troop again with the heavier armor. I generally like the heavier armor on glaive troops because if you do get some like short bow fire, etc., you can pretty much just slough that off. 15 protection is not bad. One of the big downsides to using a two-handed sword is you don't have a shield or two-handed weapon. No shield. Well, I'd rather have high protection and a two-hander than low protection and a two-hander. So these guys are all right. 14 gold, 20 resources, 18 recruitment points. Makes them a bit of an elite force. But I could totally see bringing, I don't know, a small squad of these and let's say hold and attack large enemy targets if you know the enemy has a few things, or put them in way in the back and hold and attack cavalry. So the enemy is trying to like flank into you. These guys would be pretty decent. They hit hard enough that they can hurt heavy cav. That's pretty useful to me. Or maybe these guys are the second line. I have my really cheap footmen in the front. They soak up the charge, or maybe even the pikemen. They soak up the heavy lance charge, and then these guys step into the holes and start hacking up heavy cavalry. Pretty decent. Again, a nice little option strategically. For our last infantry unit, we have Imperial Guard. This is a pretty darn good one. So we've traded out the spear for a falchion. Falchions are nice weapons. It's a length 1, it's slashing, it does 8 damage. Pretty good. 18 slashing damage is good enough to get through that 16 armor possibly. And they have 11 attack with it. Human stats all around, and they are wearing our heavier gear, giving them the 15 protection on the body. 15 gold, 23 resources, 21 recruitment points. Makes them pretty darn elite for us. But again, in the right circumstances, I think these are totally usable. If you know the enemy doesn't have like heavy cav charge, a core of these guys in the middle of your formation will hold pretty nicely. And even if they are fighting spear people, they're well protected, so they're not going to die. They just won't get too many kills themselves, but that's okay. They're just to hold the line while other things are killing. A good troop. I like them. For the infantry, we have a nice wide gambit from cheap and spammable. Several different like utility type pieces. Good bow options, including the crossbow. I like this lineup a lot. Do we need like 3 versions of the footmen? Probably not. Like the middle guys should just drop that unit, frankly. Just have the light and the heavy, but it's there. Maybe it's relevant at some point. Moving up into cavalry, we have the horseman. This is a light lance composite bow guy. He does have the mobile archer, and he is a skilled rider. He has leather armor and a half helmet, and he is riding a step horse with leather barding. Leather barding, unfortunately, not going to save your horse at all. That is unfortunate. I think these and the next one. Let's look at him next. So heavy horseman, same thing. We've moved up to heavier armor on the rider, same armor on the horse. I think of the two, I actually like the lighter one. The reason I like this one, if the enemy does not have archers, or you have your own core archers that are probably going to end up getting in a duel, a set of these guys on the flank at fire and keep distance is pretty interesting. Or perhaps hold and attack rear. They do have a light lance, so they can get a single lance charge in there. What I really like about fire and keep distance, after they spend their 12 ammunition, so 12 rounds later, they will charge into combat, and they'll have a lance hit. Normally, light cavalry just gets chewed up in the early fight, but 12 rounds in, they're going into things that are hopefully tired out. Anything that was scripted in the back to kind of try to block cavalry units might not be there. So these guys might have a better chance of getting in and doing something. It's unfortunate that we can't fire and keep distance and then attack rear in the same script. That would be super good for this type of troop. And of the two, I wouldn't want to get shot with arrows because your horse is going to die anyways. So the light one over the heavy one always, I think. Yeah, the horse is just going to die. The horse is going to be what lets you down. And in that case, you might as well have just recruited a normal archer or a heavy archer because he is very similar to that. In addition, the regular archers aren't on a horse, so they're actually more precise than these guys. So I would only get these guys as a luxury utility pick later on for big fights, like a big throne fight. Fire and keep distance, and then coming in late into the battle could actually be vaguely useful. Next, we have the Imperial Horseman. This is pretty expensive. 30 gold, 35 resources, 36 recruitment points. He does have a full lance, so remember, you only get the first hit off of that, and then you drop it and you switch to your other weapon, which will be a falchion in this case. He's all right, though. He has the 15 protection, so he is our equivalent to our heavily armored troops. His horse has light scale barding, 10 on the body, but none on the head, unfortunately. I think if you wanted some non-sacred flankers or something to try to smash through the middle of the line, these guys are okay if a bit pricey. Finally, for our sacred, we have the Red Guard. Can only be recruited in our capital. He is 50 gold, 41 resources, 46 recruitment points. That is pricey. These are slightly better, I think, than they were in Dominions 5. They made Strength of Spring less punishing. So in off months, you only go down to, I believe, 8 HP. It used to be 6 HP. And we are a heavily armored troop, so 8 might be able to survive a hit. Also, our horse is not affected by that. So our horse is wearing Cataphract Barding, gives him 21 on the head and 13 on the body. Excellent. That is usable horse right there. And he is sacred, of course. He is a normal animal, so only 6 protection. That is a weak point. But I think this is a usable sacred. Are they amazing? I don't think so. There's much better heavy cav sacreds out there. But he's still a heavy cav sacred. Depending on your bless, that can make them pretty survivable, depending on what you go with. Things of note might be hard skin, might be recuperation, might be heroism, and the like. I do think you need to buff their protection a little bit before you consider investing even further into offense. Maybe that is just a playstyle difference for me. But overall, not bad if pricey. So scales are going to be required if you'd like to use these guys. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. We have 3 heroes. We have Recruitment of Immortal. She has Air. She has Nature 2. She is Sacred. She has Immortality, so if you kill her, she will just come back. She's Ethereal. She's flying. Has some supply bonus. And she is a healer. I believe this is our only native healer option. That is really, really good for us. We would love to have more healers. We do have some old mages, so she's going to have her work cut out for her trying to keep people alive if you can be lucky and get her. We also have Immortal. He is a pretty good mage. Fire 1, Air 1, Water 2, Astral 3, Priest level 2. He's immortal, flying, and ambidextrous. He has pretty good equipment. Has a fly whisk and a Demon Slayer sword. Nice, very good leader. Very usable. I think you could use him as a thug if you wanted because he is immortal. You could gear him out. He would make a pretty nasty unit in an arena fight with his buffing here and a little bit of gems. You could do like personal mistform, quickness, body ethereal. We also have some national gear that would be really good on him. And he flies natively. So I think he could be a pretty interesting little arena fighter, especially because he's immortal. So you don't have to worry about losing him. And if you've lucked out and got the other one, she could heal off any afflictions that he picks up. So very cool little unit here. I wish both of these were multi-recruit, but I do not believe so. They are named, so I don't believe that will happen. Finally, we have the Master with the Iron Crutch. An interesting unit with his little old man tidy-whitey look there. He is Air 2, Astral 2, Death 2. He is Sacred, he has Fear, he has Immortality, Spirit Sight. He comes in at very old, and he has Plague Carrier 5. That gives you a, like, I believe it's a cloud that spreads disease. We had this guy in early age, if you'd like to go see him in action on the stream. Pretty nice because we can either teleport or we can cloud trap bees into an army. Let's say you can see an enemy super combatant running around. Well, we could go disease him with this guy. They will obviously kill him, but we will just immortality back. So pretty interesting little unit here. His mere presence causes leprosy. So there you go. You have that going for you. For our commander line, we actually have a pretty wide mage line here, but most of them are actually kept pretty usable. We have just the bog standard scout. It's nice to have a scout, so there we go. We have the Imperial Consort. She's pretty nice. 95 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points, has 70 stealth, and is a spy. Remember, spies can go to enemy capitals and look at their victory graphs. They can also up unrest with a special ability that they can set themselves up with. In addition, as a spy, you can walk to a throne and see what the throne is by going there. Look in the background here. I've done that here. So, as you can see, I don't have this owned, and I know it's the throne of Splendor. So, blessed troops get awe. What a good throne. Maybe I want to rush that if I could, although it's very difficult. But that's just nice having the option to get that intel. In addition, it saves us having to use our astral mages to try to peek at thrones and risk them getting feeble-minded. That's pretty nice. And 70 stealth is very hard for people to patrol out. So pretty darn good unit there. Next up we have the eunuch. This is one of our key lore units in Middle Age. An interesting unit here. 45 gold, 5 resources, 1 recruitment point. He has patrol bonus of 15. So if for some reason you need to patrol something out, he should probably be the guy leading that group. He has tax collector. That means that you do not need to trace a line to a friendly fort to get your tax income from a province. That means if you're going to do some raiding, maybe take one of these guys with you so you can get a little bit of income as you're rampaging around, things are recapturing things behind you. And he has Defense Organizer 2. A very interesting ability. What this will do is every turn you increase PD by 2 wherever he's at, up to 19. Now, remember for PD, it costs 1 for 1. It costs an additional 2 to go up to 2, an additional 3 to go up to 3. So the price escalates quite a lot. So getting 19 free PD is pretty interesting. Now, that's going to be slow, right? That's going to be essentially 9 turns worth of sitting around. But let's say you had this guy build forts. If you're not worried and you don't need the PD while you're building, then he could stand there and he'll just auto recruit up. And then when I get to 19, I generally go to 21. So I would just pop up, add 2 more, and there we go. They also can lead troops around. So if you're going to have guys ferry troops around, they don't need to lead them in combat specifically. 50 leadership will let you move up to 2 squads, 50 units, no morale bonus. But I find that's all right. And if you're using their PD conscription, then that'll just kind of trickle some extra PD around while you're doing that. Fun unit. I don't know how effective that actually is, but I like them. Next up, we have the General. This is our generic troop leader. 110 gold, 38 resources, 1 recruitment point. He has a composite bow, a falchion, and a lance, which is pretty nice gear here. We are paying for that with those resources. He's wearing our heavier armor also. He is a mobile archer and a skilled rider. So at least he has something to do while he's on stay behind troops. He can fire his composite bow, and he's okay with it. So may get a kill or 2. He's fine. Map move of 22. If you do go with cavalry stuff, he can move them around just fine. Pretty nice there. Next, we have the Ceremonial Master. This is our priest level 1, and he has Fortune Teller 10. Remember that we get extra misfortune scale limit, so you may want to consider going misfortune on this nation, and this is one way to counter that. Could be rather nice to have him out and build your infrastructure. We do have a priest level 2, so for blessing, I think the other guy is better. So this guy's probably relegated to a few of them out building a little infrastructure. Next, we have Master of Rituals. Speaking of our priest level 2, he also has Fortune Teller 10, and he has Bringer of Fortune 2. Extra chance of bringing a good event to the province that he is located in. I believe this is a 2% chance. Maybe you're crazy and you build a whole bunch of these. I probably wouldn't try that type of route like you're doing a Firebird strategy from Roos or something, but that's a fine bonus and I don't think it's too bad. 100 gold, 5 resources, 2 recruitment points. This is our better Blesser. They can do Sermon of Courage. Remember, we have a lot of troops with 10 morale. That would give us 12 morale, which is a big improvement to keep your lines in order. And he also has the Fortune Teller. I like these guys. Get a few of them. They can help preach, they can help banish, they can summon a courage. A very usable unit. I would definitely get some. Next, we have the Apothecary. He is a Nature 1 mage. 7 research for 72 gold a year. So that is at the efficiency line. 5 poison resist. He has some supply bonus because he has nature magic. He is a disease healer. And for some real weird reason, he has poison darts. I hope you don't never need to use those, but there it is. But it is nice to know that we have disease healing. That'll help on some of our older mages. And just if you have a nasty disease site or something, we can clean that up. I wouldn't probably get too many of these guys, but a couple of them would not be the worst thing ever, just to keep your armies ticking over. Next, we have the Imperial Geomancer. This guy is pretty important for us. Earth 1, Astral 1, 9 research for 72 gold, so he is better than efficiency line. However, they come in as pretty decently old. They are not sacred, and they do have Fortune Teller 10. That's kind of nice. We're probably taking Misfortune, and this is probably going to be our main combat mage once we're going into Gifts from Heaven. We're going to commune up and cast that. So while they're waiting around, they'll be doing some research, and they can help stop some bad events possibly from happening. Overall, 90 gold for a decent mage, not the worst thing ever. I like these guys. Next, we have the Minister of Magic. Very interesting unit here. 90 gold, 4 resources, 2 recruitment points. Now, if we compare him immediately here, same cost, 9 research. This guy has 11 because he has Adept Researcher. He gets a random of air, water, earth, and astral. That's 110%. Overall, I would get these guys early as my research mages because they are pretty efficient. If we look here, 72 gold for 11 is a nice, efficient mage. I also think that if you get the air guys, they could help buff your army with True Shot. That's area of effect 1, and it adds 4 precision. For any of our range units, that could be pretty nice. And for our Masters of Communions, dropping Gifts from Heaven is a -3 precision spell. If you could give them True Shot, that would take you up to a +1. Way less likely that you're going to deviate and smash your own line that way. I think 2 Geomancers and one of these Air 1 guys in a square, with the first thing that you do in combat is cast True Shot to save those guys, could be pretty good, but you're only getting a 25% chance. The other ones, way less useful, I would say. They would probably just stay home and be permanent researchers. These guys also could craft Alquills for us. Pretty nice little mage. Very efficient. I like it. Next, we have the Alchemist of 5 Elements. He's a Nature 1, and he has a random of Fire, Air, Water, Earth at 100%, and the same plus Nature at 10%. Overall, I probably would not get these guys. They do have Disease Healer. They have 9 research for 96 gold, so they're basically at efficiency mark. And they have Alchemist 25. This adds extra gold to rituals that make gold, but we have a better Alchemist. So if you're going to get that bonus, you might as well get the best bonus. The alchemy spells use either fire gems or earth gems. Either one of those, you're going to want to get as much out as you can, so probably not using this guy, unfortunately. Maybe early on I need an early disease healer. I get him anyways, and then I can do that. That's a possibility. Next, we have the Master of Way. He is notable for can be recruited outside of forts as well. Kind of a callback to early age. Do note that he is a sacred mage, so you need a temple and a lab to be able to recruit them. What that means for me is, generally speaking, I just build my infrastructure in my new forts early, and I recruit 1 or 2 of these guys while the fort is building. I don't know if I would go out of my way for non-fort recruitment, but it is there. He does cost 76 gold a year in upkeep and has 9 research, so he is efficient. Comes in with Water 1, Priest 1, and a random of Air, Water, Astral, Nature, Glamour. First time we've seen glamour here. Note that there's 5 of those, so that's only a 20% chance, but it could happen. Of those, I think water 2's probably the most interesting. I don't really see much point in the other ones. Next, we have the Prince General. This is our sacred leader. Do note he went up to 150 leadership compared to our general who has 100. So he adds +2 morale for up to 4 squads, 150 units. We are probably going to have a lot of humans that we're dragging around, so 150 could actually be pretty useful. Costs 335 gold, 41 resources, 2 recruitment points. Not a cheap unit, but not bad either. His mount has cataphract barding compared to our general, whose mount only has the light scale barding. That is pretty notable. Having the cataphract armor keeps the horse safe. He has an actual lance and a falchion, just like the sacreds. He has the strength of spring, so note when it's in fall, he will have quite a penalty here. I think he goes into 8 or 9 HP. That is dangerous, to say the least, but a very usable unit. I do like these guys. They do compete for cap-only recruitment, though. Next up, we have our 2 cap-only mages. We have the Imperial Alchemist. 315 gold, 4 resources, 4 recruitment points, so he is slow to recruit. He comes in with Fire 1, Air 1, Water 1, Earth 1, Nature 2, and a random 100% of Fire, Air, Water, Earth, and a 10% of the same plus Nature. Overall, not a very good combat mage. That's just way too wide. Maybe if I needed to bring in Nature 2 for some reason, yeah, I would bring him. I think I'd rather have just Nature 1 guys. Nature 2 doesn't really open up that many things, especially not at the premium of this guy. He has Morale 8, so he's quite cowardly. 19 research for 256 gold. He's not efficient there. He is a disease healer 2, so he's better than our other ones. And he's an alchemist 50, so that is a large bonus to alchemy spells. I think we are interested in probably at least doing fire alchemy if we get some fire income. Maybe earth, although earth gems are always at such a premium. That feels bad to have to do. Why are these guys interesting? They're good at site searching. I would get one of these guys and one of the next guys at least to go out site searching, especially if this guy's lucky and he rolls fire 2 or air 2 or water 2 or earth 2. Any of those would be really nice and get better searching. If you have boosters or you want to empower, they could do range searching, could be vaguely interesting. Maybe, I don't know. I think if you're going to do that route, going with your hero here and using the astral site searching and just finding everything might be more efficient. We're not the best at site searching, but at least this gets us something and gets us going. Finally, we have the Celestial Master, our second cap-only solo recruit mage. 415 gold. He comes in with Air 1, Water 2, Earth 1, Astral 1, Glamour 1, Priest level 2, and a random of Air, Water, Astral, Nature, Glamour, 110%. So the interesting thing here is he at least could lead a communion and possibly do something bigger here. Be careful. Remember, if your communion slaves don't share pathing, it's very fatiguing for them. Easy to blow them out. But for some light communing, if you need to do like that one spell, like a big air protection spell or aim spell, or maybe you want to put up Twilight for some reason, or a glamour thing, you could maybe do that carefully. Otherwise, 166 gold per year. He is actually research efficient, but he's slow to recruit, so you're better off the other guys because you'll have twice as many of them and they're also efficient. Again, I would probably get one of these guys and I would have him go out site searching. So note that unlike a similar unit in the early age, he also does not fly. I think the early age one had flying. Overall, our cap-only mages aren't actually that important to us. They're kind of utility pieces. Maybe if you have some cross-pathing you want to do, or some communion things with this guy, or some alchemy things with this guy, maybe they're a little more interesting. I think for us, our very efficient Minister of Magic or our Geomancer are probably the big money when it comes to magic for us. Who would I make my prophet? I think I would generally go for the general you start with, and if I have to do one later, I would probably just do a Prince General and just have a nice, safe unit. Do note that we don't have any infantry commander with like heavy gear, so I think I would have it on one of those two. Both of them, I think, are full scale mail. Yeah, they're equipped the same. He just has a better horse, and he has a little more upkeep that you can negate by making him your prophet. Either way, I think it's one or the other of those. National items and spells. As for national items, we actually have two national items. We have the Sword of Five Elements at Construction 3. This is a really nice sword, actually, and it's really cheap. If you could get a hammer, this is 1 fire, 1 water gem. That is dirt cheap for a nice magic sword. Gives you Reinvigoration 2. It's a slashing magic 8 damage weapon. Gives you 3 extra attack and 4 defense. You can dual wield these. That's a lot of defense. That's plus 8 to your defense. And it's going to give you Reinvigoration 4. That's a lot of Reinvigoration. A pretty nice little weapon here. I could definitely see giving this if you're going to do some light thugging, or maybe you've summoned in something to thug for you. I think that would be pretty good. Our second item is an armor at Construction 3. We have Armor of 5 Elements. Again, a really nice piece of armor. Pretty cheap. It is an Earth Magic Air plus 2 and 2. Gives you 4 HP and a magic resist, and 5 fire, shock, and cold resist. 17 protection for only -1 defense and 2 encumbrance is really nice. Give them a sword and that would negate the encumbrance value, or 2 swords, you could actually be positive. A nice little defensive piece here. I could even see giving this to mages if you're just flush with gems, and maybe doubly so if you have a hammer to make this 1-in-1 cost. Overall, a pretty darn nice piece of armor for us. National spells, we have a pretty decent list here. Starting in alchemy, we have Internal Alchemy at Alteration 5. It is 2 water and an astral, so already not very many of our mages could even cast this. Costs 5 water gems, and it de-ages you 15 years. If this was targetable, this would be way more interesting, because maybe you would spend this on like your communion leaders to make them not old age, because they're old age by 5 years, so this would fix that. But I don't believe it is. You just do it to yourself, so I don't see the point of this spell, unfortunately. In evocation, we have Celestial Chastisement at 5. That is a Astral 3 spell, so hard for us to cast. It is a spell that hits only magic beings, and it does 8 plus magic damage at 100 precision, and if they survive, it does an enslave. Could be vaguely interesting depending on who you're fighting and what they're summoning. There's some really powerful summonable magic units, and they would be nice to get. However, how many Astral 3s or how much of your communion do you want to dedicate to this? I don't know about that. It does exist, though. I also want to call out while I'm in Evocation. At Evocation 5, we also get Gifts from Heaven. This is probably what we're communing up to with our Imperial Geomancers. Gifts from Heaven is a range 100, Air of Effect 1. We get 3 effects per cast, -3 precision, and note at 100 range, we're going to be very imprecise. It also has Inaccurate. This spell may always deviate a little, no matter the precision. So even if we do get that aim on here and we're at +1, it's still going to do some deviation. 50 fatigue cost is really expensive, but you're never going to not be in a communion cast it. And I think I would always try to at least get my communion masters high enough to be Earth 4 or 5 to really knock that down some, and then it's pretty decent. Does blunt and magic damage at 150, can't be cast in caves, can't be done underwater, also has area of effect fire wherever it lands. The area effect is 8, and it does fire, magic, 10, armor piercing damage. This is a friendly fire machine. This is a Praise Rex spell, and you just clinch a little every time it casts when your lines have met. Ideally, you're going to Communion Master and Gift from Heaven 4 times, and hopefully just pass out at the end of that and not blow yourself up, but they'll wake up and do it right in the middle of your lines, I am sure. Hilarity ensues. The Gambler spell. I love it. Otherwise here, we're not actually very good evocation outside of that. Blade Wind is another thing that your mages will just do because you've already communioned them up to Gifts of Heaven. But if they decide not to do that, they'll switch to that. At least your main line troops probably have tower shields, so they may be able to save themselves from the horrendous Blade Wind that will come at them. Sorry, boys. Otherwise, a bunch of junk in here that they're going to cast that you're going to be sad when they cast it. In construction, at 4, we have 1,000-year ginseng. This requires 4 nature gems, and you have to be nature 1, and it de-ages you 5 years. Again, I don't think that you are able to target people with this. It's a self-only spell, and the people who we'd want to do it are our Imperial Geomancers who don't have nature. I don't see the point of this spell. Correct me if I'm wrong, and this is targetable, but I don't believe so unless that has changed. At enchantment 5, we have Living Mercury. This is a pretty good summon. It is water 1, earth 1, so we definitely can do it. It's only 6 water gems, and it gives you essentially a Mercury elemental that has a poison cloud. We'll look at him when we look at our conjuration stuff, but a pretty decent summon. Just be careful. Friendly fire with poison is a thing, and we are humans that will die quite quickly to something like that. Finally, in Conjuration, we have several different things. We have Celestial Servants. These are kind of bags of HP. Otherwise, not particularly great. They are only one Earth Gem, but you only get one, so they're not mage efficient particularly. Although our Imperial Geomancers could pump a lot of these out if we needed to. Next, we have Ambush of Tigers. They summon tigers. I guess I'll note here, you get 15 of them for 9 gems. That's okay, I suppose. We have Herd of Buffalo. I really like Buffalo, actually. I think they're one of the better summons. They are Berserking High Morale Tramplers, which are very nice combination there. And you get 5+ of them for 8 gems. That's not too bad. Okay break in case of emergency summon. At 4, for an air and an astral, we could summon Celestial Hounds. 2 air gems get us 2 of them. These are all right, but they're hard to get in big enough numbers. They fly, so you're generally going to want to do like a hold and attack rear. The numbers, though, it's hard to get enough. At 6, we have Call Celestial Soldiers. 2 air and a astral is hard for us to get. For 15 air gems, we get 6 soldiers. We'll look at them again in a minute. A nice spell. You're probably never going to have enough air to do that a lot. And you're probably going to make owl quills with your air gems to make your Ministers of Magic even more efficient, rather than save up for these guys. They are good, though. I'll give them that. Finally, we have the Huli Jing for 2 nature, so we can do this natively. 30 nature gems is not too bad. What do you get? A nice summon, or a nice magic unit that gives us a lot of diversity and a lot of summon potential. Very, very nice unit. We'll check her here in just a second, but I think this is what you want out of Conjuration if you're going to go this route, beyond Summon Earth Power, really. Let's actually look at those units now. Celestial Servant. He is sacred. He is a magic being. Big sack of HP at 48 HP. He only has 4 protection, though, and he is size 6. I suppose he's got decent siege strength, but I think you get more out of Summon Ogres than you would for this guy. Depending on your bless, maybe he's slightly less bad, but I don't think he's ever going to be good. Next up, we have Tigers. Tigers are tigers. They do at least have Dark Vision and 2 attacks. That is a thing. Buffalo, as I mentioned, Berserking. This is a rather nice summon. Good way to burn nature gems in an emergency, but I'd prefer to save them. Living Mercury. Pretty nice little Mercury elemental here. He is amphibious. He has resist. He has poison resist. Has a big poison cloud at 5. Is mindless. Interesting. Very interesting. Just watch out for that friendly fire with those poison clouds. It will happen no matter what you try to do to avoid it. Celestial Hounds have a bite and a claw attack that is magical. They do get our bless. They are magic beings. They have shock resistance. Big patrol bonus. Again, if you need to do that for some reason, you definitely could use these and a Eunuch in tandem to really patrol something out if you had to. Good stats, decent. Protection's a little on the low side, but not horrifically so. You're probably going to hold an attack rear, or you need them for their magic weapons, possibly. We just can't get enough of them, unfortunately. Celestial Soldiers. These guys are really nice. They have a big glaive for 32 damage at 14 attack. They are sacred magic beings, and they have Spirit Sight. They are wearing our heavier gear. I would absolutely love it if we could get more of these guys, but we don't get that many per cast, and they cost 15 air gems to cast it each. So you're never going to have enough of these. Where would I use these? This would be my monolith killer, possibly. If I don't decide to just try to hit the monolith with a meteor, which is probably what I would do because it's more guaranteed, these guys could actually damage a 31 protection monolith. That could be a possibility. It's unfortunate. These guys are so cool. I wish we could get more of them. Finally, we have the Huli Jing. This is an incredible summon. She is Nature 1, Glamour 3, so by far the highest Glamour. Do note that we have the Nature Glamour cross-pathing, so we could do the Fey summons. We also could possibly, with these, she gets two 50% chances and a 25% chance. The 50% are air, water, earth, astral, nature, and the 25% is the same but trading out nature for glamour. In theory, you could proc all three of these, and depending on what you get, you could summon in gnomes. That would break us into some earth. That would be pretty nice. Like I previously mentioned, the Fey summons are pretty good. Naiads could be possible from this. Lots and lots of things that could break us into other magic paths. That would be very helpful. In addition, she's a shapeshifter. I think she goes into a fox or a cat. I think she's a fox. Has 80 stealth, very nice. She's also a spy, although I don't know if I'd use her for her spy stuff. I think 95 gold is way better than the amount of gems we would have to spend to get one of these. And she has magic power 1. Overall, that's a very interesting thing here with the glamour. We could do Twilight, we could do Nightfall, we could do some sort of phantasmal army, we could do the glamour evocations and diversify our damage. Very, very strong here. We can natively get the 2 nature we need to summon her. All we need is nature gems. It's very nice to be able to summon in powerful mages. Very strong here. Now, Conjuration 6 is probably pretty low on my priority list. We're going to need to be getting evocation to 5. We're going to need to be getting some alteration for some buffing type stuff. Probably some enchant for some buffing type stuff. We need some thaumaturgy to get our communions running. So, getting up to 6 conjuration is going to be kind of hard, but totally worth it with this unit, I think. I think that is a nice unit. Just to round out spells, thaumaturgy, as mentioned, you're going to need to get that high enough for communions. So, communion master and slave at 1. Going past that, there's some interesting things here. We have lots of path level 1 mages that are really wide, and this would give us a lot of options. So maybe you go like Thaumaturgy 2, that gets you Bonds of Fire. Maybe you get lucky and somehow end up with a Fire 2. You could do some buffing. You can steal breath. You can calm emotions. We have an off chance of being able to use scrying pools. Beast Fury could be good. Iron Will could be good. Buff our Sacred Cavalry with that. Yeah, but the rest of this gets too expensive very quickly. In enchant, the aiming spells would be interesting. The Arrowfiend type spells would be interesting. Some of the glamour stuff here is pretty nice that we can do. A few of the nature things, we could do Envenom Arrows, that line of spells. So we would be looking at Serpent Fang Arrows. You could do this with a Nature 2 guy. 1 gem to boost path, 1 gem to cast it. Could be interesting, especially crossbows are pretty decent about at least nicking troops, and that will allow you to get the poison rolling. That also takes us towards Living Mercury if you're excited about that. Beyond that, though, it gets too expensive too fast. We don't have these high pathing needed for any of this stuff. Alquills were mentioned earlier. Dwarven Hammers, Earth Boots, all those would be nice. In Alteration, if you go with an Awake, you're going to need that for some of the buffing. Another interesting thing here, if you have Alteration 6, Eagle Eye Warriors, I never have used this spell, but we can actually cast this with a Nature 2 guy who we have natively, maybe easier than we can get up the True Shot line. And this is a Area of Effect 20, Precision plus 4 buff. That's not bad. That would be for our Gift from Heaven mages and for our range units. That's not bad. I would really consider that. If you go up construction to 5, you could give them a Cornucopia and you could give them a Thistle Mace, and it would cost you nothing to cast that. Could be kind of interesting. That does a lot of equipment, though, so I don't know. Just food for thought. I'd never really thought about using that spell. I always think air for precision buffs, but this isn't too bad. In addition, that would also open up wooden warriors. Some extra protection on human troops is always appreciated. I don't believe any of our human troops have natural protection, so you would get that full +7. And that would make even our light troops probably about protection 15-ish. So that would be quite a glow up for a 10 gold line troop to jump from 10 protection with a tower shield to 15 with a tower shield. Could be pretty interesting there. Definitely something to think about. That also would give us giant warriors. Again, maybe that could be interesting for something. I think those are probably the big ones out of alteration. All right, let's bring all of this together. Middle-aged TNG is a nation that has very interesting and wide roster of pretty usable troops, ranging from very efficient, cheap troops to pretty elite troops, but are a little bit hard to mass. We have a pretty wide mage pool, but we have wide pathing that is very shallow, so we're not great at getting to high-level spells. We can do a bit of communion work, but it's very specific for Earth and Astral, and our other guy is very hard to use in communions without blowing out the communion slaves. So we're probably looking at lots of little point buffs, lots of small spells going off, in addition to working our way towards gifts from heaven. We have fortified cities rather than castles. That's kind of a here or there thing. So this is what a walled city looks like. 40 admin, we get the commander point, we get 100% extra recruitment points. This is fine. We do get crossbowmen on our walls. That's rather nice. And we get Imperial City Guards as our fort stuff. These are really nice troops for your guards. Do note, though, wall integrity is only 400. That is a little bit scary. Now, this does go higher. We have the, I believe that's the fortified city is the next step. So this is not the final step, but you're never going to catch up to a full castle. So fortified city here, admin is 50, 36, 36, and 600. So I believe a castle's, 1,000 wall integrity? Do I have somebody with a castle near me? No, that's only a fortress. Yeah. But Steve, even here, wall integrity is already 500, and that's not the full size yet. So that's kind of a whatever, though. The admin's good. It's fine. Just know that you don't really want to be sitting there and getting siege. You'd much prefer to push people off and go siege them. We have a sacred, which is usable. He's kind of on the weaker end, I would say, of heavy cav, but he's better than he was in 5 and totally usable, I think. We are a nation that needs a lot of mages and a lot of troops. I think you want to go scales on this nation, and we'll look at that in Pretender Design. Speaking of Pretender Design, we have the lower end of numbers here, but some interesting chassis nonetheless. Starting at Dominion 1, we have one unique-ish one. We have the Master for 90 points. At least he does something different for 90. So he is a Astral 1, he has Flying Spirit Sight, and he's ambidextrous, I guess. Would I get this guy over a Great Sage for 20 more points? No. Just straight no. The Inspiring Researcher could be pretty useful. He does more research himself by over triple. I think the Great Sage would be better if I was going to go that route. Other things down here, I don't really see too much point to. Moving up to Dominion 2, we have the Asian Asian monster type units. Kind of interesting here. We have the Black Tortoise of the North. He is a protection 22 natively, and he has Strength of Winter. That's kind of whatever. I'm not a big fan of this guy. I think 200 is way too pricey for him, unfortunately, because he's kind of cool. This could be interesting if you want to do like an Ethereal Bless or a Fate Weaving Bless or something, but for 200 points, he also increases order, which we already do natively, so you would get nothing out of that. We have the White Tiger of the West for 130 points. Great chassis. Great chassis. We're going to look at a build for this guy in a second, so I won't do it here, but he ups production, which I believe we need. He has Earth and Astral, and while we have that natively, he will probably get it high enough that he can craft some boosters for us, and those are good combatant pathing. Also, he comes in with Fear, which is nice. Then we have some various dragons. Again, I don't like the order stuff because we already do that. Maybe here, 180. He ups your growth scale if you're really going all in on scales, but I think production's worth more for us, unfortunately. He can shapeshift into a celestial bureaucrat, so that's a thing, I guess. He does have water breathing, okay. Strength of Spring, I don't like those type of abilities. That's a penalty in my opinion. I don't love him. We have the Vermilion Bird of the South for 160. This isn't bad. It does up our luck scale. Now remember, we have misfortune scale on the nation. So this is actually not really a bonus. It would just kind of negate that. That's kind of whatever. He does have Fire and Astral. That's a little different. We have the Bodavista of Mercy for 230 points. I don't know about that. She does bring in healer, but we also have a healer hero, so Disbelieve, all right, Reduce unrest. We're probably going order, so that's not going to be such a big thing. I don't think that she's it, unfortunately. We do have the Phoenix, which is an immortal, and this one actually is at least vaguely interesting. You could fly in and do precision buffs and flaming arrow buffs, and you could fly between your armies to do that. He also has domain immortality, so as long as you're in your own dominion, he will come back in a few months if he does get killed. I think that's at least interesting. If I was going to go this route, I would probably go dormant, so I have some time to do some research, and this was kind of committing to rushing down enchantment for fire arrows for your first war. Could be an interesting little surprise, though, because I don't think people would expect fire arrows from Middle Age TNG. Could be a thing. You also have the reliable Earth Snake if you want to just do that, but for 240 points, you could get a comparable thing out of the Tiger for 130 points. Way better, in my opinion. Up in the Titans, we have the Celestial Carp. He is a pop killer. Be careful of that. Brings in some water and some astral. 240 points is overpriced. We have the Niori, but the problem with him is he is luck, and that's just going to cancel out. We have the Jade Emperor. He has production and order, but he's 220 points. I think if I just want the production, I'm going Tiger, unfortunately. The order again does nothing. We have the Celestial General. He at least has Combat Caster. If you want to make a Titan super combatant, this guy could definitely do it. So some air for personal misform, some earth for summon earth power and protection and temper flesh, and enough astral for body ethereal. Make sure you get enough astral. You can't be magic dueled, so you probably need 5 or preferably 6 astral to be safe from that. 6 definitely preferable. But having Combat Caster is at least something. He'll probably walk up and do Orb Lightning. That'd probably be your preference spell for him to do. Has full slots. That's at least something, but he's pricey at 240. Kamiya Storms, again, pretty cool guy, but he's Chaos Power and you're probably going Order. We have the Dhamapala of the Underworld. Again, just too overpriced. He does have Power of Death, but I don't know what you're doing with death scales on TNG. We have the Kami of the Moon. Again, he's a disease healer. We can just recruit those. We have the Kami of the Sun. Now, she's actually usable. Sight Vengeance of 15 plus a Fire Shield. Remember that they buffed Fire Shield to proc on attack, not on hit. So she'll blind people, and then every time they swing, they light themselves on fire. Her protection's a bit low, so you're probably relying on being ethereal. I could see something here. She also has awe. I could see something here. I've tried to make this work in the past. She's just overpriced, in my opinion. Asura, again, overpriced. These are just all going to be overpriced, unfortunately. Moving up to our Dom 4s, we have the Statue of War. Now, this does give you some, I believe these are Barbarian summons. Could be a thing, but we don't really need cheap chaff. We can already do that. He also negates our order bonus. I don't know if you care about that. Does bring in fire and earth. Maybe that's the pathing you want. For 180 points, though, I think I'd rather have a Phoenix if I want the fire. You have the Fountain of Blood. Again, he negates your order bonus. I don't know about that. And the Oracle. I think the Oracle is probably the more interesting there. Fortune Teller 33 would really help negate some of our misfortune that we are probably taking. It brings in Glamour and Water. So if you want a Glamour Bless or a Water Bless, this would be the place to do it. Maybe Quickness. Quickness wouldn't be the worst for our Sacreds, although very pricey for kind of a mediocre Sacred, in my opinion. Let me show you the guy that I did build. Zhao Hu, Little Tiger. Very similar to what we did in Early Age, I believe. He has Hard Skin and Reinvigoration. 6 Dominion, 3 Order, 3 Production, 1 Heat, free misfortune. Now, I would love it to get some magic scales. We would really like that, but we have pretty efficient mages already, so that's not the end of the world. And by not doing that, that let me get up to the 6th Dominion. Note here, he is awake. So he comes in with his own hard skin that takes him to 21 protection. That's not good enough to go out solo expanding, but it is good enough to join your first expansion party while some research happens. You're looking ideally for things along the lines of Summon Earth Power, Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, Body Ethereal. All those would be good. We can Astral Shield. Do note, this is dangerous. I only took 4 Astral here. 6 would definitely be a lot safer, so you can't be magic dueled. But this is good enough for Body Ethereal. And against the AI, I've never been magic dueled by the AI, but in multiplayer do know that is a distinct weakness. He also has Strength of Autumn, so those first couple turns, his HP is going to be down a good chunk, and it will go up as you approach fall, so good for the expansion phase at least. Has Fear, has Stealth, so once he can operate solo, Fear and Stealth is pretty nice. You can take the fights that you'll win and slink away when you won't. And I chose Reinvigoration, but you could totally pick a different 2-point bless between the Astral, which would probably be magic resistance. That would help out your Sacred Cavalry go up to 7 magic resist instead of 6. I don't know if that's worthwhile. Or you could go Strength of Earth and give your Sacreds an extra strength, but they already hit pretty hard. I don't know if they need that. I went Reinvigoration. I think that's fine, but your mileage may vary on that. You could take that to taste. This is really fun though. I really enjoyed this. A essentially almost full scales build. Well, no, let's not go that far. A strong scales build with good Dominion on an awake that can fight. Yes, I wish we had way more units like this. He's 130 points. I wish every nation had something comparable. A awake, but you can kind of get the scales that you need type monster, and he's thematic on it too, so like double bonus points there. I like this guy a lot. I really enjoyed the test games with him. I was gonna try some other guys out, but this is what I'm playing. Let's just be honest. I really like this. And for the people who always tell me, oh, you don't need that many scales, I beg to differ here. If we continue my game, if we look at the recruitment from my capital here, so I have my full scales, 3 order, 3 production. If we look here, I am essentially zeroing that out. Depending on the troops I wanted to build, I could get this down to 0. And this allowed me in the early game to get Sacreds out. So I think you need both. I mean, I am using up that recruitment pool. So the people who keep telling me, oh, you don't need order, you never need order, you never need order, I don't agree. I think there are circumstances where order is good. In addition, because I went whole hog on the Misfortune, I actually have Misfortune 3, but the throne I picked up was Throne of Fortune. Lucky me. Having the order lowers the number of events, so we will have less bad events, although that doesn't negate them in any way. I think that's pretty cool there. In conclusion, middle-aged TNG, probably the best TNG in my opinion. They're a lot of fun. They have a usable sacred. They have a very fun awake expander type god. They have good troops. They have okay mages that can do something interesting. We are probably the second best gift from heaven nation. I think early age Merverni is probably better, but that is still a worthy title to hold. Being second best, that is still much better than everyone else. Very, very fun. Gifts of Heaven are also a lot of RNG, but let's say I wanted to take a swing at this throne. I could drop an awful lot of Gifts from Heaven on top of those guys, and they have a target-rich environment, to say the least, so could be pretty interesting there. Other than that, tell me what you like for blesses. Tell me if you made any of those other gods work. I just don't see it. I think the Tiger is just so good. But I could see a Sage build just going for extra research, especially if you were shooting for like getting in the Jinghu summon or maybe the Phoenix. I do think that's kind of interesting to go with enough fire and air to do a big precision buff and fire arrow buff. And he still is immortal. So if you're careful with him, you don't have to worry about enemies getting kills on him. Could be kind of interesting. Could be something different. Chassis I like, but never really use. So share what you've managed to make work here and go ahead and fill out your application. for the stream, and the bureaucracy will get back to you with a response within 4 to 8 years. All right, builders, I'll see you then.